This is a test of the boundary part alert system. Andy, hello. Stephen, hello. How are you both? Are you well?
Not bad, given the circumstances, yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, alive, COVID-free. So, what did you think of today? We were outclassed in the end, weren't we?
Yeah, I guess that's a fair assessment, isn't it? I was quite... I really enjoyed the first half. I thought we competed really well in the first half. In fact, after lamenting Harry Kewell for what appeared to be quite a defensive lineup, so without McElhaney and Durnley, and I couldn't really work out who the number 9 was. I guess it was Bahambula in the end, but whether it was Keeler done it was just a false 9. I thought it was going to be pretty turgid, but actually we went at him. So his tactics, he surprised me when we did pretty well. So we hit the post, great shot from Barnett, Piergiani header, Bahambula side netting. You're thinking, it's good this, enjoying it. And to come a bit fortunate with a penalty, weren't we? I'm not entirely sure that was a foul. There's a little bit of a dive.
You can say he won that penalty.
He won that penalty, yeah.
Yeah.
But to get to half-time 1-1, I was well pleased, yeah. I'm looking forward to the second half. I was a bit disappointed in the second half, though. We got outclassed, like you say, but I think I'd have liked to see McElhaney and Durnley earlier, personally.
Yeah, they came out the traps, didn't they, very quickly? Bournemouth, second half. But we just didn't have a reply, did we? It was like we were on the ropes straight away, and then we just stayed on the ropes, really.
I think they switched to the wing backs, didn't they, for the second half? And they got that Raquel May on the ball a lot more as well. And I just don't think we could cope with it, could we? Really? After such an encouraging first half, you're going in and you get the goal right at half time. You go in with your tails up, don't you? And I think they just tweaked a few things, and probably, let's be honest, they probably got a bit of a rollicking as well, didn't they, at half time? Let's be honest. I'm sure they were thinking just as we were, really, with the number of games coming up. They probably didn't want it to go to extra time either way. So you think you either kill the game off or, go for it and get beat. It's one of the two, isn't it?
Yeah, we definitely could have come out with more attacking intent. I mean, I texted my brother, and he was all for bringing Durnley and McElhaney on at half time. But I don't think managers think like that, do they? He thought that it was going all right in the first half, so he wasn't going to do anything sort of drastic. Whereas I suppose if he had done that and Bournemouth had come out as like they did, but we had thrown something back, then it might have been a bit more interesting. I think we were always going to concede quite a few goals today, but I think we didn't set ourselves up in the second half to actually reply, did we? And that was the problem early on enough. If we'd have come out on the front and done what they'd done and said, right, come on, let's go at them first 10 minutes,
I guess not bringing. I didn't expect him to bring McElhaney and Durnley on straight away. I was expecting him to bring him on after about 60 minutes. He loves a 60-minute substitution or thereabouts, doesn't he? So I was expecting him around that sort of time. If we can keep it to 1-1, then he'd have a go in the last half hour. But we were already 2-1 down pretty early, weren't we?
Yeah, pretty quick. Yeah.
I was starting to get irritated that he wasn't making a move at 2-1 down, really. And it took it really to go to 3-1, didn't it, before he started to make changes, and then of course they really are chasing the game then. So it's being hypercritical, really, playing a top championship side who've just come down out of the Premier League. You've still got a lot of Premier League quality players. That King, obviously a top player. Can't really complain. The 4-1 flattered them in the end, didn't it? I don't think they were 4-1 better, particularly Bournemouth, but I think as I've said in a couple of text messages to people, I think the two players for me that clearly weren't up to it from our perspective were Garrity and Piergiani. Even though Piergiani sort of put himself about in the first half, I just think that they got overrun and outclassed a bit. Whereas, funny enough, I don't know about you, but some of the other players like McCalmont and even Whelan when he came on, those sort of Premier League academy players who are all sort of pretty and nice and tidy and technically quite good, just lacking sort of physicality for League Two. So they get found out in League Two a bit because they're sort of a little bit too small and weak. actually, in those sorts of games, when they're playing against other technical players, they sort of look better, don't they? They sort of fit in. Whereas Pierre Gianni and Garrity will stick out like a sore thumb because they're nowhere near as good footballers. That's sort of what I noticed, really.
That's the thing. I mean, there are players for divisions, aren't there? I think that's been the criticism of the recruitment at Latics is they've not been recruiting players suitable for League Two. We've seen I've seen a lot of players that are big and physical, but they can play a bit as well. They've just got a little bit more. They're not a really high level, but they've got enough ability mixed in with enough physicality and enough nous to make them good League Two, League One players. And like you said, are you like today with Charlie beating Derby's youth team?
Yeah.
Obviously Derby's youth team's full of far better footballers than Charlie, but the combination of the attitude and the work rate, the physicality, no doubt that Charlie absolutely bullied those young lads from Derby, because that's just not the way that they're brought into the game and groomed through the game anymore, is it?
Absolutely.
No. A few years ago, I went to watch a pre-season friendly up at Charlie, and they played Bolton's kids. It was like a Bolton 11, and Charlie won 6-1, and you could see it from the off. It's the desire. It's they've got a point to prove. They're perhaps a bit more direct with their approach rather than sort of playing tippy-tappy football, academy football, as you might want to call it.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's similar with some of our lot. I mean, go back to Pierre Gianni. I think he's a perfectly capable defender. I don't necessarily think he's a leader in the sense of, and I won't mention ex captain or defenders that we've had and make that comparison, but I think he's a decent defender, but I don't necessarily think he organises a defence.
What he needs is that experienced player behind him, anticipating his mistakes. Someone, someone who maybe, I don't know, someone whose name's rhymes with heater, maybe. I don't know, just for example. Somebody tweeted today, I'm not too sure who it was. I think it might have been Arlene Flanagan. Is it Flanagan? Finnegan. Sorry, Arlene there, but I can't believe that he's Wheater's not playing, sitting home watching BT Sports and bench pressing his dog. But yeah, it's because that's what you need. Pierre Gianni, he's good enough to play at League Two level, but he just needs somebody in there organising him and anticipating his mistakes, because Pierre Gianni will throw his head and his body in front of everything. You need that, don't you? You need that kind of a centre half in League Two. He wins a lot of headers, a lot of aerial duels and stuff. But I saw on Twitter today there was a lot of people that were like getting really carried away that everyone wasn't good enough. The difference between our squad and Bournemouth's squad is massive. And you can't judge today's performance against the league. We were always going to get, if we won today, they would have had to play the best they played all season, and everything would have had to gone our way, wouldn't it? Don't judge us against Bournemouth. Judge us against Harrogate and Grimsby and all the other fine performances we've put in this season.
But that's the thing. I was saying to the lads, like, I'm not really sure I've learned anything new about us today, really. It was a free hit, wasn't it? It was a free hit. If we'd have got something from it, then brilliant. Maybe we'd sort of get a draw and take it to extra time and win on penalties or whatever. But we really had nothing to lose today, and I've come away thinking, right, well, what have I learned today? Well, I've learned that we'll leak goals, and I've learned that we look half decent going forward, and that Bahambula, probably the biggest plus is that putting Bahambula in and around better players from a higher division, and he doesn't look out of place. That's probably the biggest thing I've learned. But other than that, I've not really learned anything new about how we play or what we do.
You'd want to be trying to tie Bahambula down to a long contract, wouldn't you? The boy's got ability. Yeah. He doesn't score probably enough goals, and you could critique him in some ways, but he's by far one of the better players that we've got. Him, McElhaney, Burnley, Rowe. Those four are perfectly adequate for League Two, aren't they?
You've got to be building your squad around players like that, and you get them tied down. Start to build that squad for next season. So that these people aren't wondering about where they're going to be playing, and all of a sudden, all you need to do is tweak a squad rather than make wholesale changes or start from having 5 or 6 players in a squad, and then you get into that position of stability, aren't you? Which is what we need to build on.
Yeah, we look very weak down the left-hand side, don't we? Very vulnerable down that side. Even we definitely look a bit more solid when Borthwick Jackson's in the side than when he's not. Teams seem to get a lot of joy. It doesn't matter who we're playing down that left-hand side. So there's there's work to do, but like you said, we've got that kind of really good attacking four. I'd be surprised if we started next season with all of those in the squad, to be honest. I'd like to think we would, but I'd be surprised.
Well, recent history tells you, doesn't it? Even when we're in League One, the churn of playing staff is over half your playing staff leaves at the end of every season, doesn't it?
And usually that's fine because they're all crap, so it doesn't matter. Like, he's like, yeah, get rid of them, send them. Yeah. You couldn't get rid of them quick enough. But now we're in a position where we've got some players that we actually do want to keep, and that other teams will want. So, we've discussed this for the last few weeks.
You talked about on the pod last week, didn't you? And,
it's all down to
I replied on Twitter with the when all the contracts were running out, and you can see how there's a hell of a task to be done.
We're vulnerable, aren't we? We're very vulnerable in that respect. They're not going to give long contracts to people that they're not sure about, who need to prove themselves. And I guess the trick is once they look to be proving themselves, to try and get them down on a contract. And, you can always say to the player, there's a clause, if we get an offer of such and such, you can go to a bigger club, all that kind of stuff. But at least you know that you're going to get, because I was looking at some of the things on Twitter today, some of the price tags that people were putting on Bahambula and stuff like that.
I think I saw 5 million at one point.
Yeah, 5 million was the top one that I saw. I think someone suggested, and I think they were being serious when they said, like, is he going to be the first £1 million player since Paul Bernard? I don't think he's going to be going for £1 million, but like, there is he's definitely worth something. He's definitely the type of player that a club is going to come in and pay money for. So how much that is, I don't know. But I mean, again, like, players are only ever improved when you put them in a better team with better players as well, aren't they? So,
You look at Bahambula. So Bahambula was on a 1-year deal with an option. And we know nothing about the option really, whether that's an option in our favour, in his favour, or whether it's an option where both parties have to agree. You don't really know. Is it an option that's predicated on appearances? I don't know. It's just an option. So his contract runs out in the summer, and then we'll see what happens then. If they can get him on a longer term contract, then maybe he's a resellable asset. Otherwise, no one's going to buy him off us at the minute, are they? If his contract runs out in June.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, can you trigger an option? Surely you can trigger an option early. I don't know how these things work, generally speaking. But I mean, based on what you've seen, if you're cool, or if you the hierarchy at the club, you're saying we want you till the end of next season, and then if somebody comes in with a bid of 300-400 grand, on the basis that he signed a longer contract, do you take it and then build strengthen your squad based on that? I don't, we've obviously made mistakes in the past, haven't we, where we've tried to hold out for more money, or we've ended up losing good players on a free and not got anything for them. So do you just take that sort of approach of saying, well, we're a selling club, let's take what we've got and reinvest?
I think I'd be trying to use COVID to my advantage if I was in the management and sitting down with these lads and saying, look, let's get you on a contract. We've got you on this contract, we're going to pay you. You don't know what's going to happen this season. Next season might not happen. Just whatever it takes, really, just to try and get them signed up onto something decent, because it can't work against them to be. They're obviously if the likes of Bahambula and McElhaney, Durnley, Danny Rowe, they all sign new contracts. They're going to be signing better deals, aren't they? They're going to be getting more money because the club are going to have to come up with better deals for them, and they're going to have clauses, I'd say, for the club are going to turn around and say, look, we'll sell you if the money's right. Don't worry about that. That's the way it goes, isn't it? And so it's just keeping everybody happy and making sure that everybody benefits from it. So, look, Andy's wearing his flat cap because, we've already said you're a disciple of Mo. So I'm going to get on a T-shirt for you, and you'll wear that with pride, won't you? Picture of Mo on it with his flat cap, disciple of Mo.
While we're talking about Mo then, so he's back in the country, isn't he? Presumably he's trying to line up players for the January transfer window. I haven't heard any rumours from journalists that might appear to have legs, or read them anywhere. There's a couple of spurious rumours which really are look like pure rumours, of a couple of foreign lads been training with us for a while. One of them might be South American potentially, which could end up signing at some stage. Other than that, I've not heard a dicky bird, and yet quite a few teams in League Two have started to sign some players, haven't they? So Stevenage signed about 3 or 4 the other day. I'm not saying they're any good, just saying they're signing some. Kieran Lee went to Bolton, didn't he?
Yeah.
That hurts,
you're starting to see teams sign some players. It's very early in the month. I'm not moaning. Relaxed enough the time being.
Moaning.
Yay! But it'd be quite nice to understand what the plan is, you know, in terms of are we triggering some options? Are we extending some contracts? Are we offering contracts to players like McElhaney, who hasn't got an option that we're aware of at least? You know, we're trying to do that.
This is one of the frustrating things when it comes to the communication, and because you know that Harry Kewell can say things when people, you know, Harry Kewell gets interviewed quite a lot, obviously, but we know that he can't say, you know, with authority about what's happening in terms of players and deals and all, because we know that Mo's in the background really pulling the strings in that department. I'm sure he's working with Harry Kewell. I'm sure, like, he's not just going to, like, you know, here you go, Harry. Here's a Colombian. And when you said South American, Andy, I started smiling because I got this idea. As soon as you said it, there's this guy with like a mullet with long hair and about a mustache, you know, short shorts. And just, I'd love someone like that. Latin's fans would love someone like that. Just some kind of cool
half Ian Marshall, half Diego Maradona.
Exactly. just rocking up. Like, everyone's like, this guy's either going to be absolutely brilliant or absolutely rubbish, but we're going to love him anyway. Like, like an 80s Colombian. Fantastic. That's what, there's really more of them in the game, but yeah, but there's this, because Mo doesn't say anything, does he? He never comes out and says anything. And so Harry's kind of like got to talk, but we don't get that much out of Harry, do we? I was going to say that we're interviewing Carl Evans again. I'm going to talk to Carl this week, but I can ask him, but I know his answer is going to be, I've got nothing to do with the footballing side, so I won't get any answers out of him either. But like, you know, when you've got more of an old-fashioned manager who's sort of more responsible for recruitment, you might get a bit more out of them in an interview, might you?
I heard on the commentary today, I don't know where you picked it up, when they were talking, it was right in the first 5 minutes, I think the commentary were obviously picking up on Bahambula being our threat, and he lived up to it, to be fair to the lad, in that first few minutes. But the commentary team were picking him out, and then the camera panned to Harry Kewell, and the commentator said something along the lines of, Harry Kewell has done well to pick this lad out and sign him. And I'm thinking to himself, bollocks. He didn't even know who he was before he turned up. A lot of rubbish. But that's not a criticism necessarily. That's just the modern way of football, isn't it, really? Is how could he possibly know? I also read in the week, I think it might have been the Oldham Times, an article where Harry Kewell had interviewed, and he was talking about signing players. He was really referring, I think, in the article to trying to get Harry Clark from Arsenal on an extended loan because his loan runs out at the end of January. And he also referenced the fact that he's going to give Jordan Barnett an extension, which could have gone either way for me, but fair enough. In the article, it said something along the lines of, Harry Kewell was quoted saying, when Harry was offered to us, we weren't sure about him. And it's that sort of language that I find fascinating about modern day football. I'm going to sound a dinosaur now when I say, if you think about the Royal era, Royal was going out scouting the players. He had like a black book on everyone's reserve team and knew which ones were good and which ones weren't, and then tried to pick them off for cheap prices. I know those days are gone, but we don't seem to know anybody. We just wait for someone to be offered to us. It's like, you know, when we're offered him, like, oh, great, who's he? Yeah, all right, we'll have him then. There seems to be sort of, I hope there is, but there doesn't appear to be in the narrative or the language any enormous scouting network going on where we're really understanding the potential of the youth network.
Well, there's two ways to read that, Andy, really, I think. When he says, when he's offered to us, as in when he's offered to the club, or if Harry Kewell means when he's offered to us, as in Harry Kewell and his team by Mo.
You're right, of course it could be, but I come to the conclusion, maybe unfairly, but I reckon I'm still ready. I'll still say I'm fairly confident I'm right, that Mo hasn't done his homework on Harrison Clark in Arsenal's under-23s. I don't think Mo will know what his positive and negative attributes are. Unless Mo's watching Premier League under-23 football every night of the week, and I don't think he is, where's he getting that intel from? It seems to be self-evident to me that our recruitment strategy is based on agents. Our owners are former agents, so they know how the agent network works. They've got contacts that they seem to rely on. So we've got certain sort of cohorts of players from certain agency groups. So Lee Philpott is an agent, former Leicester City player in the 90s. Lee Philpott, his agency is LPM, and we've got about 3 or 4 players from there, and we've got 3 or 4 players from another agency group. And he just seems to have relationships with certain agents. And so when I read those articles, I always conclude that an agent is just ringing up and go, yeah, Mo, you need a centre half, don't you? You know, because Wheater's banished with the kids. We've got a cracking centre half for you. He plays for Arsenal, he's 23, got some quality tattoos and he can head a ball. Fancy him? Yeah, get him in. I think that seems to be how it works, as opposed to I conclude that Mo is like studying it and then talking to Harry, and Harry's going, well, the lad at Newcastle's all right, but I prefer the one at Arsenal. Let's get the one. I don't think that's going on. Doesn't feel like it's going on anyway.
No, I think that's a really interesting point, Andy, because how does our scouting and recruitment work? Because obviously it can't just all be down to Mo. There must be other people scouting for the club, and it'd be nice to know, wouldn't it? I mean, we're in that age now where everybody needs to know everything. We need to know everything, don't we? We're just, everyone's just getting nosier and nosier. When it comes to football, when you talk about transparency and all that, we just want to know everything. We're not happy with just seeing who's in the team in the program on a Saturday. We need to know how it all works, and it would be interesting to find that out, and for someone from the club to shed a bit of light on it, whether they will or not, I don't know, but it would be interesting to know.
I think we're probably still a bit nervous, aren't we, about the fact that when the new player gets brought in, you don't automatically think, and we perhaps done this on the previous manager as well. Like, you know, if Shez brought a player in on loan as soon as he joined the club, you'd probably go, oh, he must be all right, this guy. Like, you know, he's brought him straight in. You know, Shez has got a good eye for these sorts of players and all that kind of stuff. Whereas I think we're probably still in that mode at the moment where you don't know if it's going to be a Bahambula that they're going to bring in, or it's going to be a Gonzalez that they're going to bring in. You know, it could be those two, or it could be anything in the middle. And, you know, and I think, you know, January windows can be quite important, can't they? And I think that when you look at where we are now, is it 7 points off the playoffs?
7 points off relegation.
We're also 7 or 8 points off relegation. You know, what we need now is we need to push on for that second half of the season. So the recruitment that we do now has got to be good in order for us to do that. And I think these glaring areas for me that I think we probably need to improve. And, you know, we put a tweet out, push the boundary, like in the week, and just said, like, what changes would you make? And I think everyone that replied pretty much to a man came back with right back, centre mid, right back and experienced centre mid. And everybody's saying that. And I know we've been banging on about that for ages, and nothing probably that we've seen today or in previous weeks, even when we've been on a good run, would probably change my mind on that. I still think that that's what we're crying out for. And I think when Kuehl was interviewed in the week, he stopped very, very far short of saying we needed someone in centre mid, which that sticks out like a sore thumb. We can all see it. And not necessarily for the away games. I think the away form sort of speaks for itself in the way that we set up. It's probably more for the home games. We need it. We need that person who's going to sit on the ball in midfield and just keep dictating the play.
I mean, we've been saying it since the start of the season, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
Since the beginning of the season.
And the thing is, you know, no team has probably ever been promoted that's got a home record that looks like ours. That will continue. You know, we need to find a different way of playing at home. And this is not a criticism. This is just me saying we're in a place now. How do we kick on to that next level? And I'm sure it's the same what Harry Kuehl is saying.
It doesn't need to be a criticism because it's all there in black and white.
Yeah.
The home form speaks for itself. I actually got a little bit of stick off some rando on social media after last week's podcast saying that we were being too negative because we did I asked everybody to predict where we were going to finish in the table, and I said 14th, and the highest that anybody chose was 12th, and the lowest was 16th, so somewhere between 12th and 16th. Now, based on what you've just said there, 7 points off the playoff, 7 points off relegation. Everything suggests, based on, you know, our home form being what it is and our away form being what it is. Away from home, we're promotion contenders. At home, we're relegation fodder. We're in the middle, and we don't know if January we're going to come out of January better or if we're going to come out of January worse. So, in terms of making a prediction, I'm not going to predict that we're all of a sudden going to get a lot better and finish higher up. Reading it as it is, I think we're probably going to finish in the middle of the table, and we're going to, and like we've already said, we do have something to build on for next season, all being well. So it's all down to, again, the manager. My brother's slagging him off today and saying that he should have done this and should have done that. And my brother's very impatient when it comes to things like this. He has a very clear idea of what he wants, and that's all fine. We need to keep this consistency. We need a manager. We need we need the relationship between Mo and Harry Kewell. Because if you sack Harry Kewell, Mo will just bring in whoever. And Mo is not a football manager. Mo doesn't know what football managers know. He doesn't know how to build a squad and how to build a team and how to manage and facilitate that into success, because he's never done it. That's not what he does. So this is the problem when we don't have a stable manager, stable coach in place to liaise with Mo. Mo just brings in whoever, and then the manager has to deal with it. And so that's keeping Harry Kewell now, whether, again, like we've talked about, whether you like him or not, whether you think he's tactically a proficient manager, whatever, we've got to keep him. We've got to give him a chance. And he's got to develop that relationship with Mo. And they've got to decide between them which players are coming into the club.
He's done enough, Harry, now to be given longer for me. You know, he's not. I don't think he's the best, you know, coach or manager I've ever seen, or he's certainly not the most articulate and lucid in interviews. But he's done enough, and you know, like the first half today, you know, you can't knock him for that. He set that team up today, and it competed for the first half against a team that was way, way, way better than us. And you say to yourself, okay, fair enough. So he should be given. I'd be at this moment in time, in my mind's eye, I'd be giving him the whole of next season.
Totally, I agree. I totally agree. He needs the time, and him and Mo need to develop that relationship, and he needs to build a relationship with the players that he's got. Like, you know, if he was a top manager, he wouldn't be at Oldham, would he? Now, there's nothing to say that. That's not saying he won't go on to be a manager at a high level, but at the minute he's a rookie manager, and he's learning, and we've got to give him a chance. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely improved things, hasn't he, since the start of the season? He's improved the squad that the team and the squad that we've got. So we're moving in the right direction. We just have to be realistic about it. There's that word again. Realistic. We just have to be realistic about it. I mean, I get a little bit annoyed when we get stupid messages like that off people, because I think we try every week to be balanced, don't we? I think like we do praise people when they do well, and we criticise when things aren't good enough. But I'd like to think that if you've listened to this podcast since the start of the season and you've watched the games, then you would acknowledge that we are actually realistic about what's happening at the football club and what's happening on the pitch.
I'd like to think so, yeah. You know, everyone is entitled to their opinion, though, aren't they? So, you know, maybe some of those folks that think that we're not positive enough might want to come on the podcast and talk to us about it. You know, I guess that's the invitation's always there. Could it be possible for me to switch the conversation back to the FA Cup for a brief moment, gentlemen?
Listen, like a deft midfielder, just switching the play, Andy. Did
you see the official website picked it up? So I'm presuming Mickey Brown pushed it on the official website this week. There was an article which came from some research that was conducted by Bet Victor into who were or who are the greatest giant killers over the last 25 years. Did you see that article, gentlemen?
A dramatic effect, Andy. No, I didn't. Please inform me and the audience. I actually didn't, but I thought that would make quite a good line. So no, fill us in, mate.
Well, I thought it was really interesting.
I think I know the answer, but fill us in anyway.
Well, so over the last 25 years, if you subtract or take away the difference between the league position of the teams that the giant killers have beaten. So I'll give you, for example, when we beat Fulham in 2019, 2 years ago, there were 63 places between us and Fulham in the league rankings. Now, if you do that over 25 years and you add up the difference between the positions of the teams that competed, and then you total up them as points, of the top 10, 264 points, so difference in position over 25 years is the top on that list. 176 in 10th position. 10th position Swansea, 9th Wigan, 8th Stevenage, 7th Dale, 6th Sheffield, and obviously the top of the list is us. So we're over the course of that 25-year period, we've beaten Fulham 63 places between us, Liverpool 56, Forest 35, Everton 47, Manchester City 55, and it includes some spurious win in 95, 96 against Barnsley when we were both in the same division and eight places apart. I'm going to ignore that, but 264 points is the total position. I just thought it was a really interesting article. But then, did you notice on top of that, James Reed? Did you have him on one of your earlier podcasts?
Friend of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
James Reed wrote an article for Forbes magazine about the FA Cup and giant killing specials. Did you see that article?
Yes.
I did see that, yes.
Yeah. I thought it was another really interesting article. So in Forbes magazine, there were, again, it was some betting company had said basically from their scoring system, Bradford's 4-2 victory at Chelsea in 2015 was the biggest giant killing. But betting companies don't go back much more than 15, 20 years. So he'd written an article, Forbes magazine, looking at the total history of FA Cup shocks. And he basically used something called, it's basically called the ELO rating system. So it's
the ELO, the Electric Light Orchestra rating system. Oh, it was invented by Jeff Lynne. Yeah. I know it.
Arpad Elo, the Hungarian-American physics professor, of course. I mean,
right, okay,
right.
I was thinking of a different one. I think this was something to do with synthesizers, but yeah, crack on.
Of all of the FA, so the biggest shock, according to James Reed, was Wrexham's 2-1 win against Arsenal. 1992.
Mickey Thomas free kick.
Thomas free kick.
Yeah. But then he goes on to say what the ELO system doesn't do is take into account home advantage. So of course, in theory, it's easier to win at home. So therefore,
flawed, very flawed.
So there needs to be some sort of rating in there. So basically, then he looked at over the course of time prior to 1900. You had a 60% chance of winning at home. And basically, as the years have progressed up to 1990, you've now got less than 50% chance of winning at home. So it's actually easier to win away. So we adjusted it. And in the list, the biggest shock was one that I think both you two gentlemen attended, was when Crystal Palace won 1-0 away at Newcastle in 1907. A very famous victory.
Yeah.
But they are that.
all of the big shocks are all away wins. So that in the top 10 are all away wins. The biggest home shock ever in the history of the FA Cup is...
Oh, I'm so excited about this, Andy.
Latics 3, Liverpool 2 in 2013. Because by the time that come around, away wins were expected and Liverpool were expected to win away. So the biggest ever home shock in the history of the FA Cup is us. And we are the greatest giant killers of the last 25 years.
Well, Liverpool, they were either top of the league or they were second in the league. Because that was the season that they nearly won the league, isn't it?
Yeah.
When Gerrard slipped and they had Sturridge and Suarez up front. And
so I'm glad you've done that. I'm glad you've done that because that allows me then to talk about 89-90. So in 89-90, because I read someone on Twitter say, surely 89-90 is our biggest ever year for cup shocks because we knocked so many teams out. And then of course, people were pointing out that we were a second tier team, not a fourth tier team in those days. So I summed it up. So when we beat Arsenal in the League Cup, they were top of the table and we were sixth.
And champions, weren't they?
Yeah, champions and top of the table.
Yeah.
When we beat Southampton, they were fifth and we were fourth at that time in Division 2. Everton were a lowly 12th when we took us three times to beat them and we were sixth. And then Villa were top when we beat Villa in the quarterfinal FA Cup and we were still sixth. So we were in the top six for ages and then fell out towards the end. The total difference in positions in 89-90 of teams we defeated is 83, which is less than the 91 when we beat Forest and Liverpool in the same season. So actually, beating Forest and Liverpool in the same season is worth more points than all of our 89-90 escapades.
Yeah, because that you've done some good research there, Andy. Well done. That's pretty good. That was interesting. What it said to me was it's nice to be known as we're the top giant killers, but it also highlights that we've been shit for ages, doesn't it? That's what I mean. That's the glaring problem with it. It's like, no one gets any credit for beating us because we're rubbish. And we've got this massive gulf between us and the top teams now, which makes us a famous giant killer. So I'm actually depressed by that information, unfortunately. And I don't want that. I don't want that title anymore. I want us to be in the top 6 of the Championship, beating Aston Villa. I don't want it now.
I've got one final one for you on the FA Cup, and then I'll stop boring you with stats. One final one. FA Cup semi-finals. Who has appeared in the most FA Cup semi-finals?
Arsenal. They've won it more than anyone else.
Correct. Well done.
Right.
Excellent. Arsenal.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Percentage win. Who's got the best win percentage in FA Cup semi-finals? So they, and I'm excluding teams that have appeared in like one or teams that are best win percentage.
I'm going to go for you. Guess this one, Steve. I was going to say Man United. You guessed it.
Not just a copy. I was actually going to say Man United.
We were both going to say Man United.
I can't recall them losing. Well, I've many semi-finals.
Yeah.
So Man United have been in 30 FA Cup semi-finals. They've won 20 and lost 10, so 67-33. It's actually perversely Newcastle have won 76% of theirs. They've won 13 of 17. Now, what this leads me on to is, what is the worst performance of a football club in FA Cup semi-finals? Who has been in the most FA Cup semi-finals without ever winning one?
Well, we've been in 2, and we lost both of them, didn't we?
Huh?
Well, haven't we been in more than that, haven't we? Because we were in one in 1913.
Oh,
13.
You were there because you went to that Palace Newcastle game in 1907,
yeah.
And then you went to the semi-final but I couldn't make it because I had dysentery.
Yeah.
The team that has appeared in the most FA Cup semi-finals and never won one is us.
Is it?
Tied with Norwich City. We've both been in 3 and never won one.
Oh, no way.
That's a bit of that's a real cherry on top of you haven't been promoted in 30 years and finished in the top 6 in the last 15 or whatever it is, 13 years.
We really are the most depressing club to support that has never gone out of that's never been relegated out of the league or gone bust. Because obviously it's depressing if that happens to you, but other than that, it's grim, isn't it? It's so grim. I tell you, I've never been more depressed after a football match than the 93-94 season FA Cup semi-final defeat. That Matt Hughes volley. In fact, I was more depressed after the first leg than I was after the second leg. It was after because we lost 4-1 in the replay, didn't we? But going into school after that was just horrendous.
It was
and
horrible.
I felt so physically. Oh, it was awful. It was just awful. And I think probably the realization that was the last FA Cup semi-final that were.
I made a vow. I was like, you know what? Because I was at that game and it was my first time at Wembley. I remember saying to people like England games and all like other games and stuff. And I was like, right, I'm not going to go back to Wembley until I go there watching Latics. And this is probably something that I said in like the late 90s or something like that, thinking it won't be that long. And then obviously we moved away from Wembley, went to the Millennium and all that. And then we went back, and when the new Wembley was built, and time went on and on and on. And I was just thinking, no, I'm not going back until I watch Latics. And I just thought, I got to a point and I was like, it's not happening, this, is it? I think it's probably just after Mavoto and the keeper had bumped into each other and Jack Lester had just popped it in against when we played Chesterfield. And I thought, right, yeah, stuff it. So I ended up going watching England Malta. I thought, I'm not signing up to this. No way.
Well, I've still not been to the new Wembley. I've been to Wembley once. I went to the League Cup final in 1990. I couldn't go to the FA Cup semi-final in 93-94 because the same morning I had a semi-final that I used to play for Chaddy Park, and we played a cup semi-final down in Manchester. I can't remember. We were in the South Manchester Sunday League, and I was the captain. I scored 2 goals from outside the box. One was a lob over the keeper, and the other one was smashed it into the top corner. Right, so I had a great morning. Do you know what I mean? I think we won 3-2, and I'd scored 2 as the captain, buzzing. I think what happened was our game overlapped with the semi-final, so we had to tape it, and then we had to like go home without knowing, and I think we had to watch the game on tape, like after. And then the whole day was ruined, completely ruined by it. That's the way I remember it. It was a long time ago.
I went to both at Wembley. I went in 90 and 94. My memories of 94, the things that stick out in my mind vividly now, I remember very little of the game really and the day. I remember it not being as warm as the one in 1990, which was belting hot. But the journey back, I vividly remember I was sat at the very back seat of the coach I was on, just sort of staring into space out the window, going up the M6. And every time we passed the United coach, of course, there, because we're going exactly the same journey, they're celebrating on their coach like they've just won the cup. Well, of course, they knew they were going to beat us. I knew they were going to beat us in the replay.
That was our one
shot. They were celebrating so much that I just stared out of the window blankly, like in my. I was a teenager. I'm just willing the coaches to crash or burst into flames, or and then the week afterwards, I was at college actually, and the week afterwards, just being in shock for the whole. Without wanting to trivialize something that is obviously a very serious thing, that is about as close to post-traumatic stress disorder I think I've ever been.
We've been metaphorically staring out of that window, haven't we, since that
Ever
day?
Since, yeah. But watching our own coach burn, unfortunately. Yeah. But I get it though. I get it because it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. It really was heartbreaking. It just, when that goal went in, when that volley went in, because we were so close, and there's nothing worse in football than losing it at the last minute, then have it snatched away at the very last minute. It was pure heartbreak. It really was. I don't think I've ever got over it. I hate Man United with such a passion. I always have since both those two FA Cup semis. But that and it's purely personal. It's like, this is why do you hate Man United? It's personal. It's really, really personal. And it's that. And it was going into school and getting all that shit off United fans that it was just like, nah, they're just, So once Ferguson left, I was willing for years. When Fergie leaves, it's going to go to shit, United. When Fergie leaves, it's going to go to shit. I was like, and thankfully it has done. Unfortunately, depressingly, they're moving back up again. But, this is what it's all about in football, isn't it? There's something like that happens to you. It scars you for life. And
yeah,
I'm starting to sound very bitter. Very, very bitter.
I mean, effectively, obviously, like you were saying, that United fans were absolutely delighted that they'd got that result and we were gutted. And I don't know if you remember a few years ago when we played Preston on a Tuesday night and we drew 3-3. And I think we were 2-0 down and then we got it back to 2-2. We were 3-2 down and then we scored a last minute equaliser. I think it might have been Wesolowski, something like that. And I'm sure it was that weekend we went to Carlisle away and we were 3-0 up at half time.
Yeah, and got beat.
No, we drew 3-3. We drew 3-3. And in fact, it was 3-1 at half time. That was it. And it was amazing how the same result could feel so different. Like after Preston, you were buzzing because you scored a last minute equaliser, and then you got the Carlisle game at the weekend, and I'm sure it was Zoko or someone like that. They bloody scored against us again, and you just feel absolutely deflated. But it's footy, innit?
Yeah. But the last few minutes of a football match, that's those winners and those lose. That's where the real joy and the real heartbreak is, isn't it?
I remember being sat up in the main stand up for the Liverpool game, the 3-2, and just feeling sick for pretty much the entire game. Even when you were winning, you couldn't enjoy it because you just felt like it's the most like crushing feeling, isn't it? Because it's just like.
I didn't travel over for that game, and I usually had done for most of the big games. I'd travelled over and but I sat in the pub next to a Liverpool fan who was a mate of mine who drank with in the local, and just sat there staring at the screen over pints. And like you said, Steve, felt sick, absolutely riddled with nerves, because if we fuck this up, it's going to be absolute heartbreak. Especially when we got to 3-2 and Gerrard came on, it was just like.
And then he hit the bar, didn't he?
Yeah, and it's like,
hit the bar, yeah.
Because you know it was just going to be crushing, and you knew that it was just going to bring back, like you said about the post-traumatic stress. It was, you were going to get all this wave of that. What happened against United was just going to hit you all over again, and it was. And not being at the game was so hard, because if you're there, you can, even though you're going to be nervous, you can kind of get caught up in the energy and maybe sing and chant and whatever, clap and shout. But just sitting on a bar stool, like, it was horrendous. But yeah, we won, and it was great. But yeah, the FA Cup, there was no magic for us today, was there? No magic. Yeah, and we'll see. It's League Two's the bread and butter, and the podcast, we're going to keep putting it out. This is episode 17. I've got a few interviews lined up with a couple of people. Carl Evans is one of them. We're going to have the podcast in a week or two. I'm going to be interviewing the lads from the Walking Down Sheep. Well, not interviewing. We're going to be having a chat with the lads from the Walking Down Sheepfoot Lane podcast and the new one, which is looming on the horizon, the Chaddy Enders. We've brought it, and we're going to all get together. And Simon Brooks chipped in actually on Twitter saying, "What about the All Things Latics podcast?" And he was bringing it. Is this some kind of Anchorman Latics podcast showdown? I think it's going to be a bit more civilized than that. But yeah, it was like we're all converging on the car park behind the White Hart on Ollins Road. And,
I'll look forward to listening to that chat. It'll be a good chat.
Yeah, no, it will. I mean, because all of a sudden it's like with Latics podcasts are everywhere, and that's partly because podcasts are relatively easy to make and anyone can do it, and there's obviously a demand for it. People want to listen to content because no one really gets it from the local media anymore. Certainly not BBC Radio Manchester or whatever. So there is a demand, and I think they're all different as well. I think all the podcasts are different. Well, it'd be nice to chat about why people are doing what they're doing and what they're doing, what they hope to achieve from what they're doing, and just whatever. Just have a bit of banter and slag each other off a bit, whatever. And maybe one day we will all meet up on the White Hart car park with like weapons of choice, traffic cones, stuff like that, stuff that we found on the way in, maybe a shopping trolley, that kind of thing.
Surely the rifle range is better for that, isn't it?
Oh, the rifle range, yeah. Yeah, no rifles though, Andy. You're bloodbath. Unless we all have a good few scoops in the rifle range, our shots will be awful, won't they? Chances of anyone coming away injured are pretty low. It's
been done up now as well. Well, it's been done recently. I think it was perhaps start of last season, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, it's a good. It's good well over 12 months since I've been in there.
Since anyone's been in a pub.
Well, exactly, yeah.
yeah.
Now, some people have been in pubs, haven't they? That's why we've got loads of COVID. Because people didn't. Anyway, let's not get into that and all that nonsense. You don't come here for COVID, do you?
No.
Right, lads, I think we'll wrap it up there. I've got to go and tidy up all the mess I made when I was doing this DIY disaster earlier on and have me tea. Boundary Park Alert System is a Studio 6 production. It's hosted, edited and mixed by me, Matt Dean, and you can contact me on Twitter at DublinOAFC. If you'd like to get in touch with us or contribute to the show, our email is bpalertsystem@gmail.com, and we're on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook at OAFC Podcast. If you'd like to know more about Push the Boundary, you can visit pushtheboundary.co.uk and follow them on Twitter at PTB_OAFC. The match stats are compiled and presented by Thomas Berry, and you can follow Thomas, spelled Tomos, on Twitter at Thomas Berry. The title music for the show is Delirio by Manchester DJ and producer Starion. You can visit redlaserrecords.bandcamp.com for more info and the latest releases. If you like the show, please do review and subscribe on whichever platform you listen. Thanks for listening.